Hi, Marvin. Thank you for your video. Always a pleasure. Okay, so right off the top, you were talking about the practice versus work dynamic and stress and time management and all that. And you know, it's just so normal. You know, it's as like you, a practicing musician. There's days like today, for example, I'm making a whole bunch of videos for my music students, for my martial arts students. You know, I'm not going to have as much time to practice as I normally do. And it may be by the time I get to the end of my day that I'm just really not going to have that much energy, you know, to really give it what I want. Chances are I will. I kind of get into it, you know, and do my minimum, and then I find myself really getting into it. But yeah, there's going to be an ebb and flow of, you know, inevitably. I feel like you've made really good choices about it. And there's a certain level of that frustration or that, you know, that friction of like, I want to do more stuff than I'm able to do. That's actually not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be negative. It's like that motivation that when I get the time, I will in fact use it. You know, when I have more time, I will practice and I will get to those things that I'm not doing right now. That's a good thing. That's healthy. But there also needs to be kind of a balance of that with a kind of a contentment of recognizing, you know, I'm doing really well. You know, and you're doing really, really well. And you can afford to have a week or two where you don't get to all the things that you want to get to and you don't get to spend exactly as much time as you would like. It's still working. And I get it that you're a very consistent and disciplined practicer, and it doesn't feel good to you to leave stuff off your plate and have to come back to it later. I totally get that. But maybe there's a lesson in there that there's a maximum and there's a minimum. And then there's, you know, degrees between that. And for some people have trouble who have exactly the opposite skill set as guys like you who really have trouble disciplining themselves to get to the practice room. And for them, I often say, well, what's your minimum, you know? And if you do this, then you can check that box, say, okay, I practiced and I just can't make myself practice any more than that today. Then you're okay, right? But for those of us who prefer the maximum, we have to learn to accept a minimum, that it's okay. It is okay. And as I said, it can be okay and at the same time still feel like, I really want that more time. And when it comes, you'll make use of it. But it's not as if this isn't working. And it's not as if this is some kind of anomaly. Things will happen. Even on weeks when you think, okay, great, I've got time to practice this week, things come up. Stuff happens, right? So we have to be able to go, oh, well, I can't do the practice I would like today. I can do the minimum, which is great. Or maybe I can't get the horn at all. I've got lots of money in the bank. I can make a short withdrawal. You know, I've still got, you know, I'm still building interest. It's all good. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a balance there that I think is worth figuring out. And I think you are figuring that out. I just wanted to, you know, support your understanding of that process. It's not like I'm talking to a kid here. You understand how to discipline yourself and how to accept that, you know, you're not always going to have the time that you want to do what you want to do. There was kind of a theme to the whole video this week about endurance on a brass scissors. I think it's awesome, and so it's become the theme of this lesson. We'll see as we go here. You were saying that you find that your embouchure phase, that you get tired fast. Although the high notes are coming up better than ever, but then you find you run out of steam. So there's a bunch of things to say about that. The first is that it's actually really insightful to be noticing that. You've heard of Herbert L. Clark, of course, who wrote the Clark Studies and was Claude Gordon's teacher, was Herbert L. Clark. And Herbert L. Clark said that endurance is 90% of brass playing. He might have said 98%, I can't remember. And so the other 10% or 2% is everything else. So, you know, we have to work pretty hard to be able to do everything we want to be able to do. And then it's like, can you keep on doing that? Can you do those things at the end of the concert, right? Can you play that high note at the end of the concert, right? And can you play loud? And can you make a soft attack in the low range at the end of the concert, right? So it's very insightful to recognize, okay, that's a thing. This is the thing we're working on. And you kind of, all the stuff that happened as you kept referencing that as you went through your practice session on your video for me, where the answers were built right into that. So the big answer is that what we're getting good at, we get stronger. There's no question, and I would think you probably agree with me that the stuff you're doing now is pretty hard. Like the Claude Gordon stuff, the Arbin stuff, even the keys and the range that you're covering. I mean, a year ago, you wouldn't have been able to get through that, no matter how many breaks. Like, you're way stronger. So your endurance has increased, and you're doing very demanding practicing. So a lot of the unwritten subtext of the practicing you're doing is in fact about building endurance, right? When you're sitting and playing in a band, you might have some really demanding parts, but then you're counting rests, and then you come in and then you count rests. And then the conductor says, okay, I want to go over that part again. Trumpets, take it down the octave or just save it for the show. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are given some leeway because everybody knows that endurance is an issue. And you can be like, no, I'm fine. I'm happy to play. I can play it all day, right? That's where you're going to get to. So it is an issue, and you are doing stuff that's encouraging that, and you're feeling the weight of that. You're feeling, my goodness, I'm starting to run out of steam here, like, because the work you're doing is in fact built to build those muscles, to build that endurance. So how do you deal with the inevitable, running out of steam in the middle of your practice session? Well, kind of exactly what you did. You take mini breaks, right? And I had a friend who used to actually use a timer, and he had his timer set for 15 seconds. A 15-second break is actually quite a long time. If I was to sit here and say, okay, I'm going to have 15 seconds of silence during your video, you're going to be like, what's going on? Like, it's a long time. And it's more than enough time to release your chops. And you found that. You reach a certain point in your practicing and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And then you put the horn back up, and just stopping and saying that to me was enough break that now you're fresh again. And so a big part of endurance is being able to just have that brute strength that you can just keep playing and there's no problem. There's also an efficiency in the playing that occurs where you're not working that hard. You're not really taxing your muscles so you don't get tired. So both those things are true. You're strong and efficient. But no matter how strong and efficient you are, you're likely to get to certain points where you're starting to feel that fatigue. And so then the other skill that happens is you start getting a really fast recovery. You get really good at being able to recover with a very small amount of time. So just that, 1 or 2 bars in a piece, you take the mouthpiece off your face, bam, you're good. You're starting to feel it. You can't, nobody can hear it, but you're feeling, oh boy, I got a high C coming up in the next line. I'm starting to feel it. And you put the horn down, count your 2 bars rest, bam, you're fine. That's what they used to say about Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player, was that, he was a great athlete. But, there's lots of great athletes playing in professional sports. What was unique about Wayne Gretzky was that he could just play himself out and go sit on the bench for like 5 minutes and go right back and be ready to go. Or other people they'd need 20 minutes to break. And he could do it in a couple of minutes and he'd be ready to go. Really fast recovery. And that's what we want. You can get to the point where you can recover while you're playing. You can actually just consciously kind of relax and play more efficiently. And one of the ways we can do that in our practicing is to play some things quite a bit softer. So we tend to gravitate to some kind of middle dynamic, right? And as we get stronger, that dynamic tends to get a little bit louder, which is normal and healthy. But it's also really healthy to go the other way. So I'm starting to feel a little tired. I'm going to start playing really softly for a while, and then let that build up. Let myself recover, and then I can feel my strength coming back. And so even while you're playing, you can be recovering. So it's all good. There's no problem that I can see. And those are my big ideas about endurance. And it seems to be you're really on track with that. But you need the understanding. You need the information, okay? All right. So Claude Gordon, number 19. Good work. You survived. No more pedal tones now. You're done with pedal tones. Number 20 is next, and number 20 has 2 parts. I just want to alert you to that. You're kind of back to a similar kind of a pattern as you did in previous Claude Gordon. So those few, I think 17, 18, 19 are kind of anomalies, and they're a little bit of a break in a way. And now you're kind of back to hardcore Claude Gordon kinds of practicing. So remember your basic things. You want to emphasize the top notes, and make a beautiful sound, and just make the tempos as bright as you can practically do. Just make them sound really good. Try to make them sound like a piece of music. Ideally, you do all of part A and then you do all of part B, if you can squeeze that in. And if you keep your tempos up, then it won't take that much time. Solfege sounded really, really good. I sent you a PDF. Hopefully that's helpful. I don't have any comments about the solfege. It sounds good. You're singing Amazing Grace. You'll have the rest of the syllables for you. It's good to try to figure them out on your own. I mean, I know I sang them to you, and I'm kind of weaning you from just spoon feeding you the syllables. So like somewhere along the way, I'm going to say, here are the first few syllables to whatever new tune is, and no PDFs. Figure it out. And I'll let you know next week if you got them right. and eventually you'll be just, I won't be giving you anything. I'll just say, well, how about this tune? Or how about that tune? Or you'll be picking tunes. And I'll go, yeah, that's a good tune. Go ahead and do that. And you'll just be able to figure them out yourself. And that's when we're really in the game. Okay. Konako was good and bad. Okay, so it was good in the most fundamental way that it's meant to be good, which is that you're really grooving. All the time you're spending with that metronome is really starting to work for you. Like, I don't feel you pulling, rushing, dragging, trying to find your way. You're just bang on with the metronome. That's gold, man. It's gold. It makes you sound so good. It's getting really close to what is the most essential element of music. It isn't that. Having a steady beat is not the only thing that makes music good music, but it's getting really close to what that is, whatever that is. I think that whatever that is probably undefinable, right? It's something that as musicians we have to try to find and somehow define for ourselves, whether it's verbally or not. What is the essential thing that I'm trying to do? What is the music I want to say? What makes a piece really sound good, and what makes it be correct but somehow really not communicate? What makes it really communicate? And definitely if the rhythm isn't happening, it's not going to work, period. But that in itself is not, isn't a panacea. It doesn't make it work, right? It makes it functional, though. It's going to work in the context of an ensemble, or it's going to be in the ballpark. If all you've got is excellent intonation and excellent rhythm, well, you can be on the recording session. You can do the professional gig. You're in the ballpark. But for our own musical satisfaction, there's some other kind of indefinable thing that draws us as artists, and it's not good enough just to be in time. Anyhow, I'm getting off on a tangent here. The Konako was really good. It was really steady. However, your takita, because you're comparing it to takis and takidimis, you're turning it into a duple rhythm. Okay, so let me. Here's my metronome. I got my metronome on 80, just so I won't waste time. So if we go taki, tak, you're going takita, takita, takita. And so what takita is, when I'm singing it that way, is 2/16 and an eighth. It's not a triplet. We want a triplet. We want 3/8 notes with a 3 over top, like that, right? And so that would sound like this. If I went taki, takita, taki, takita. So takita, takita, takita. They're all the same. Da 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 da. They're all the same length. Not takita, which means short, short, long, short, short, long, short, short, long. That's 2/16 and an eighth. 2 short notes and a long note. We want them all the same. So that's quite a contrast. There's a real, almost seasicky kind of a contrast between those two rhythms. And like for drummers, this is an essential thing. If you want to get a grip on rhythm, you need to be able to understand and compare and even combine those two rhythms, as in taki, taki, ta, taki, taki, ta, taki, taki, ta, taki, taki, ta, taki, ta, taki, 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 ta, ta, right? Or takadimi, taki, ta, takadimi, taki, ta, takadimi, taki, ta, takadimi, taki, ta, taki, ta, takadimi, taki, ta, taki, ta, takadimi, right? It's kind of a cool sound. So you missed that this week. No great damage done or anything. And as I said, you were nice and steady with the metronome. But see if you can find that triplet, because you get to compare it to takis, so just straight eighths, and then 3/8, taki, takita, and then 16ths, takadimi, and triplets. And takadimi is also a duple rhythm. It fits. If I'm counting eighths, 1 and 2 and taki, taki, takadimi, 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 it totally fits. But I don't know if I can even do this. But if I'm going eighths, 1 and 2 and taki ta taki ta taki ta taki ta taki ta taki ta, it doesn't, right? It doesn't line up. Takadimi, I can't. I don't think I can even do the takadimis. I need to be able to. That's next. Okay, so but that's good work, and we made that update. Okay, Amazing Grace. Thank you for your stories about your stepdad and your uncle, and I think it's a really beautiful choice. I actually played that tune for a funeral of Eddie of Eddie's Menswear. I never met him, but he was way in the back in a congregation of a church I play in every month. And I guess he actually really liked my playing, and he specifically requested me to play for his funeral Amazing Grace. He wanted to hear Amazing Grace. So that was quite an honor. It was really quite beautiful and a great tune to play, right? So that really resonates with me, and I think it would be beautiful if you could play that for your uncle. So the first question is, what's a good key? And I found a piano version if you're going to play with a pianist. In the Canadian Brass Book 1, and that's in F. It's quite a low key, but it can sound good for sure. You might feel like you're going to sing more in a higher key, like if you played it in C, and you got up to your G above this on top of the staff to really sing it out. That might feel better. If you want, the first question is, what key do you want to play it in for your performance? And then I would play that every day. Just play from memory, using your solfege, emphasize that key as kind of your go-to tune. And it's something you can even just sort of think about. You can just do the fingerings and think the tune, and that's a way to really learn a tune. And then that'll be the key you'd play for that performance. And if there's going to be a pianist and you want to play it in a key other than F, let me know. I'm happy to transpose that accompaniment and put it into a key for you that's going to work if there's going to be a pianist. So the keys were good. You felt some fatigue there. One thing that I didn't mention about recovery and stuff is in the actual playing, we want to have a pretty strong embouchure. And it seems counterintuitive because you think, well, if I don't want my muscles to get tired, maybe I should make them really soft. Well, no, because the trouble is you've got this mouthpiece, right? And you've got this little bit of flesh between your teeth and the metal of your mouthpiece, squishing them together. And we want to use minimal pressure, but there's going to be some mouthpiece pressure. And the point is that you want to meet that pressure with your arms. You're kind of pushing out, meeting the meat of the so the pressure of your mouthpiece doesn't compress your lips, right? So you're meeting it with the musculature of your lips, and that'll keep you from fatiguing too soon. That just occurred to me when you're talking through your keys and you're starting to run out of steam there. And I also mentioned here that you could go to a much softer dynamic at times to save some chops. Another possibility that occurred to me when you're doing your keys, although this isn't a for sure, but you might consider starting with keys rather than starting with Claude Gordon, because it's more of a warm-up, right? With the Claude Gordon stuff, you're getting ready into the high range right away. And there's something to be said for that, because while you're fresh, bam, you go to your highest, hardest stuff. There's something to be said for that. But if you're finding that that's kind of killing you, or if you feel that you're not quite ready and you want to warm up, well, then start with the keys first. So that's an option. That's not an assignment. That's just something that you can consider if that makes sense to you. You could experiment with it and see what feels best to you. For myself, I pick up the horn and I just go straight to whatever I want to play today. I don't warm up. But that's me. Arbins, you played number 33 for me at 80, number 35 as well. 33 is really good. With these repeated pattern types of things, it's good to consider where you're going to take your breath and do that consistently. You don't necessarily, even want to take a breath every bar. It might be every 2 bars or every 4 bars, depending on the tempo, or how long the bars are. If it's a 2/4 time, maybe every 2 bars or 4 bars. If it's 4/4 time and the tempo is relatively slow, it might be every bar or every 2 bars. But you want to just make a kind of decision about it, and always take your breath in the same place in that bar. And you want that to be a musical consideration. So you're not taking your breath because you need a breath. You're taking a breath because there should be a break there in the music. So that might mean that there's a break every single bar. You might be going bum 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 because it sounds good. And then whenever you need a breath, you can take that breath in that spot. You don't have to take it every single time. Yeah. It's an interesting thing as brass players. We sometimes feel like if I have to stop the music to take a breath, like the music is stopped, and I wish I didn't have to take a breath. But I can tell you, people who play instruments that they don't need to breathe. We actually had a cellist come in and do a master class for us one time. It was kind of fun. We were playing all this music for this cellist, and she didn't know our music, but she's a musician and she had things to say. And one of the things she said to a number of the brass students was this: you need to stop and take a breath and let the music breathe. Because as cellists, they could just saw on interminably, and it's like, no, stop and let the music breathe and come in with the next phrase. Because really, vocal music, and singers need to breathe, that's music, right? Singing and drumming is music. So it's not a bad thing to take a breath. It's a real musical decision, and it's an important one. And oftentimes there needs to be more musical breaks than we actually need for breath. So make them anyways. Okay, for the general style, I would say even shorter notes because of speed. So you want the notes to be as short at the slower tempos as they're going to be at the faster tempo. Okay, so short notes in argons. And we do want to get these up to tempo if at all possible. So try to get it up to, I think this section goes to 120. Going back, there aren't tempo markings for every single exercise. The tempo marking is the last tempo marking that you have, whatever number that was, maybe the previous page, and that means that those tempo markings apply to everything after that until there's a new tempo marking. So whatever it might be, 60 to 120 or something back in lesson or exercise 25 or something. So everything up until lesson or exercise 40 or the next time when there's a new tempo marking, and then everything after that is going to be that same tempo until there's a new tempo indication. So I think that these ones that you're on now are meant to go at 120. If you can get it up there. If you can't, then just make a note on your page or somewhere that it say I got it up to 100 or whatever I got it up to, so you know for next time when you go back, these ones still have some room to grow. And your chop's kind of recovered here, interestingly. Number 35, you had trouble getting in the groove. You couldn't get with your metronome, and it was a little bit frustrating for you. I've certainly been there. You were rushing. You were playing too fast, so you know. And the solution to that is something I suggested before, but I've never actually heard you do it. And that is to have your metronome on, play the study on one note. Play the rhythm that's there, play a few bars of it on one note, so you're totally focused only on the rhythm. And then you find it, and then you can add the pitches to it, and everything's good. It's a really good solution to more than one thing. It's a good solution for this particular issue. If you find yourself not able to get in sync with the metronome, go to one note. Don't just keep doing it the same way and still making the mistake. Go to a single pitch. So I'm sorry I don't have the book open in front of me, but let's suppose it was something like, I'll put my metronome on and make something up. Let's say that it wasn't in rhythm and I'm not happy with it. I would go. Until I really feel, okay, now I'm really in sync, and now I can go and really be in the pocket. Now, I wasn't wrong the first time I played this, and of course, this kind of a demonstration, I'm kind of focused on what I want to say, and I'm not really digging into my playing. It's the first notes of the day. But, you know, after I played it on one note, that was way better. You know, I wasn't way off the first time. I was more or less with the metronome. But after playing it on one note, even with my very distracted and just really quick little demo thing, it was way more pleasurable for me to play that last time with the metronome. I was way better in the pocket, you know. So there's always a good reason to do that. It's never going to be a bad idea. And there's other times when it's really useful for other musical things that we're trying to do. Sometimes we have relatively complex pitches going on, but we're trying to get a particular dynamic scheme and articulation scheme, and the pitches are just really messing it up. And so we learn it on one note, we get the rhythm exactly right, we get the dynamic shape the way we want, the articulation the way we want, and then we add the pitches at the end. I learned a whole set of pieces that way, a bunch of actually unaccompanied flute music that I played on the bass trombone down 2 octaves. And I spent a couple of weeks practicing them on one note to get them exactly the way I wanted, and only then did I add the pitches. So there's lots of good reasons for doing that. And you didn't have time for When Johnny Comes Marching Home. I don't have a problem with that. That's what happens sometimes. There's other ways of going about it. Sometimes you can alternate practice material. You can say, well, I'm going to play scales one day and my piece another day, and you know, some days I'll do the conical and other days I'll do the solfege. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you can mix it up. But I think the choices you're making are actually really good. And you know, even with getting to less material and having less time, you're still improving. Like, it's sounding really good. So you can trust your instincts, and your practice instincts are really strong. So thanks as always. Beautiful work, Marvin. I look forward to your next video.